In the quiet spaces between breath and knowing, Zen reminds us that trust is not a thing to be built with effort, but the natural fragrance that arises when control is released. The moment a husband stops trying to steer his partner's thoughts, feelings, or choices, even in small ways, he creates a field of freedom, an open invitation into being rather than doing. Many relationships fracture under the weight of subtle instruction, disguised as concern, small acts of direction that chip away at sovereignty. Asking, "Why did you?" Suggesting, "Maybe you should." Offering, "Let me help." Encoded in love, but rooted in insecurity, fear, and the longing to feel safe by mastering the unknown. Yet Zen tells us the only posture of love that fosters deep trust is relinquishment, the letting go of imagined outcomes, and the movement toward presence instead. To stop controlling is not to step back in passivity, but to step forward in awareness. It is to offer a silence that breathes and listens, to hold space instead of filling it with advice, judgment, or reassurance. It is the courageous practice of seeing your partner not through the lens of what you need, but with compassionate attention to who they are wishing to become. The husband who wishes for lasting trust must learn to carry his own anxiety so that it does not leak inadvertently into her. He must become the calm within the storm, the ground beneath her feet, not the architect of her behavior. Zen shows us that even the smallest attempt to predict her feelings or direct her path is a veil between hearts. And in lifting that veil, one moment of genuine curiosity becomes worth 1,000 efforts to fix. When you stop trying to guide her from insecurity and instead ask with open curiosity, "What's alive in you?" It is trust itself, walking through the door. It is an invitation to show up as you are, without having to explain, justify, or retreat. Over time, these moments of non-interference become a rhythm of connection, a sacred choreography of presence. Each inhale becomes an opportunity to hold space, each exhale an offering of acceptance. And as this unfolds, a deep shift occurs. You stop measuring love by problem solving and begin to measure it by sanctuary. The Zen husband learns that true intimacy is less about knowing her answers than honoring her questions, less about doing things for her and more about doing things with her. From mutual attention, shared presence, and aligned intention. To stop trying to control is to remember that your partner's journey is hers alone, and that love asks you not to fix, but to witness. If she falters, you stand, not above to give guidance, but beside to share strength. If she flies, you rejoice, not in relief, but in gratitude for her unfolding. Zen teaches that trust is the reciprocal natural consequence when your energy is not caught in attempting to shape her, but so held in recognizing her aliveness. This is the one thing to stop doing, seeking to manage or influence her path from the seat of your own fear. And when you stop, what emerges is trust, quiet, deep, unforced, unearned by deeds, but rooted in presence. Every time you resist the urge to offer advice and instead stay present, you are practicing trust in the making. You are sending the message, "I trust you to find your own way." In that release lives an immense kindness, not only to your partner, but to yourself, because when you're not holding tight, you're freed from your own internal pressure to control and fix. Observe how often interactions become subtle negotiations. When she expresses concern, do you rush in with reassurance before truly hearing the layers beneath? Zen encourages you to notice these impulses, to pause, breathe, and offer silence in place of solution, presence in place of direction. In that pause, you create a seed of trust. In that moment of stillness, you affirm her autonomy and agency. You offer the gift of letting her be. Consider how often control masquerades as care. A husband may think, if I keep her on the right path, I'll protect her. But Zen reminds us that real protection comes from resilience, not containment. When we protect another by limiting their freedom, we send the signal, I don't believe in your capacity. But when we accompany them in their unfolding, even through mistakes, we send a more powerful message. I believe in your wisdom. I trust your intuition. Trust blooms in receptivity more than in correctness. It emerges not when every need is met, but when understanding is extended widely. If she is sad and you rush to fix it, the message is, your sadness is not okay. But if you simply sit and breathe with her sorrow, you communicate with you, your sadness is seen. I can hold it. That witnessing is the essence of trust, a soft, spacious acceptance that says, you are not alone here. When you stop steering her experience, you stop creating the distance that trust so desperately needs to grow. You bring her closer into the warmth of your attention. In the quiet gift of non-interference, you remind her she is already visible, already valid, already enough. And the mirror of your acceptance becomes one of the most healing spaces we can ever offer. In these moments, you might notice your own discomfort rising, the need to say something, to validate, to nudge. When it comes, breathe, thank it, and return to presence. You are practicing freedom, yours and hers, one breath at a time. Over time, those breaths weave a fabric of trust, so strong that even when storms arrive, doubt, fear, conflict, the root remains unbroken because it is held in shared soil of voluntary space. Zen lessons come in small whispers. Let go. Be still. Watch. Over time, these turn into the steady rhythm of love that doesn't require validation to exist, that thrives in self-generated stillness, that deepens in unscripted vulnerability, that heals in silence and grows in space. So if you wonder what the one thing is you must stop doing, here it is. Stop trying to guide her feelings. Stop trying to predict her reactions. Stop trying to align her experience to your comfort. Stop managing her life in the name of caring. And instead, remain, simply present. An anchor, a sanctuary, a calm field where she can safely unfold. Withholding control becomes an act of faith. Faith in her, faith in your shared bond, and faith in the power of love when freed from expectation. In that faith, trust awakens. As you cultivate this field of non-interference, notice how trust grows quietly, like moss on stone, unseen at first, but deeply anchored once it takes hold. Each act of restraint, every moment you choose space over guidance, softens the ground of your connection. Your partner senses this shift, not through grand gestures, but through your steady breath, your unclenched posture, your willingness to witness without agenda. In that unclenched presence, they breathe more deeply. They feel freer to speak, to explore, to share without fear of redirection. When she shares her dreams, do you subtly inject doubt? When she admits uncertainty, does your eagerness to reassure carry an undertone that she shouldn't feel this way? Zen invites you to hold her reveries, not judge them. Invite them to be heard, even if they scare you, even if they stretch your expectations. Let your role be witness, not fixer. This is not passive. It is profoundly courageous. It requires you to sit with the unknown, to be present with her experience without needing a roadmap. Imagine trust like a river. Control is the dam built from fear. You may believe you are safeguarding the flow, but in truth, you are blocking its vitality. Every suggestion, every you should, why didn't you, come with me, is a brick in that dam. Zen walks beside that river, with hands gently cupped, not to redirect, but simply to honor its passage. To be that listener who doesn't rip stones from the water, but instead feels the current with reverence. To be the mirror that reflects her truth back, rather than refracts it through your image of what she should be. When arguments arise, as they will, observe the impulse beneath the words, a desire to shape the outcome, to feel safe, to avoid blame. Zen invites a different posture. Rather than leap to correct, stay. Rather than define right and wrong, listen. Rather than impose silence, breathe. Through that breath, a new connection is made, not a connection of compromise or agreement, but one of genuine unfolding. And it is in this space, neither conflict nor resolution, but presence, that trust deepens most powerfully. To sustain this, a husband must also cultivate presence with himself, because control is often rooted in his own unhealed wounds, fear of abandonment, rejection, or loss of identity. If you can meet your own discomfort without fleeing into problem solving, you start to dissolve the roots that drive subtle controlling behaviors. Zen meditation becomes your companion in this awakening. As you anchor to your breath, you learn to hold yourself when uncertainty arises. And when you can hold yourself, you can hold your partner, not to save her, but alongside her. This is the first step of liberation, recognizing that the one thing to stop doing is controlling. Not because control is inherently unloving, but because it is a sign of mistrust in yourself, in love, and in mystery. Real trust doesn't need to be earned. It simply grows when space is given. The Zen husband does not wait for permission to trust. He becomes trust. In the quiet spaces between breath and knowing, Zen reminds us that trust is not built by effort, but blossoms naturally when control is released. The moment a husband stops steering his partner's feelings, thoughts, or choices, even in small ways, he creates a field of freedom, a sanctuary where love can truly breathe. Many relationships fracture under the weight of subtle direction, disguised as concern. Why did you? Maybe you should. Let me help. These words may be offered in love, but often stem from insecurity, fear, and a mistaken belief that knowing the outcome protects both hearts. Yet Zen teaches, the posture of love that nurtures profound trust is one of letting go, of imagined futures, of interventions, and of the quiet withdrawals of autonomy. To stop controlling is not to disengage, but to deepen deeply into awareness. It means offering silence instead of solutions, receptivity instead of rationale, understanding instead of insistence. A husband who steps back allows space for his partner to unfold and breathe. Such restraint is an act of kindness. It honors her capacity to choose, to feel, to learn, and to grow. Zen invites him to notice when anxiety rises in response to uncertainty, to inhale deeply, and to stand steady in the center of not knowing. In this pause, love is not attested, it is liberated. Each moment of non-interference is a seed of trust. Over time, these seeds root in the soil of mutual respect, sprouting as deeper intimacy. When she shares her fears, do you rush to comfort? Zen teaches you to sit beside her discomfort, to breathe with her sorrow, and to hold sacred the honesty of vulnerability. It is through this witness that trust is mirrored back. I see you. I hold you. You matter. In doing so, the husband moves from being a fixer to being a refuge. When control masquerades as care, Zen calls us to see the difference. If I protect her by shaping her path, don't I deny her wisdom? Control is often resourced in the desire to feel safe, but true safety grows not from direction, but from trust. Letting go sends a message not of abandonment, but of radical belief. I trust you. I trust us. I trust this journey. This trust becomes the most potent love language of all. Every time a husband stops mid-urge to correct, to validate, to manage, he practices real freedom. Freedom from ego. Freedom for love. He begins to see his partner not as a problem to be solved, but as a whole, being to be honored. Yes, this path can feel tender and sometimes terrifying, as it requires surrendering the illusion of control. But Zen reminds us that surrender is not a loss. It is a return to grace. Imagine trust like water. Control is the dam built of worry, of wanting to keep it from flowing. When the river is free to turn and carve its own way, life begins again. The husband who refuses to manipulate becomes a mirror, not a sculptor. He brings presence, not pressure. Listening, not lecturing. Curiosity, not correction. In moments of tension, this stance is tested. Arguments still arise. Words still break like waves on the shore. But when you pause and ask, is it more important to be right or to be connected? The answer quietly arrives. Connection. And so you breathe. You listen. You hold your reaction. You meet her not with defense, but with openness. True intimacy is born not from no conflict, but from conscious conflict, where the goal is understanding, not dominance. This is the first step of spiritual freedom, recognizing that the one thing you must stop doing is controlling, not because control is inherently wrong, but because it conceals fear and sows separation. Trust is not earned. It grows when you trust first. Trust is an offering, not a currency. In every moment you step back to offer space, you step forward into love. Zen teaches that being is more powerful than doing. You cannot do trust, but you can be trust through your presence, your breath, your silence. Let each inhale settle your fear. Let each exhale release your grip. And know, in the breathing space of non-interference, trust awakens and love becomes both wild and beautifully safe. If this message brought you calm, this space is always here for you. Subscribe, return, and walk this quiet path with us, one breath at a time. Until next time, remember, a disciplined mind brings happiness.